Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new to watching my videos, my name is Crystal. Thank you so much for being here. I post all kinds of bookish content here on my channel, book reviews, book hauls, reading vlogs, all of it. So if you are a fellow bookworm, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I got lots of books to talk about today. We are coming into the summertime. It is May 12th. I was like, what day is it? I don't even know. I live in Texas, and so it is already feeling like summer here. I mean, technically summer doesn't start until next month, but I figure I would go through all the books that I think would be perfect to read during the summer season. And this is a little fun fact about myself. I actually despise the summertime. I can't even tell you how much I hate it. It's not my vibe, okay? I am that person that during the summer, I actually like to read darker books because I want to take myself out of the summer mode. And I know that that is very opposite of most people, but that's just me. That's just who I am. I don't like the summertime. I'm not a summer girly. I am more of a fall winter girl. So when it comes to reading, I actually am not someone who reads a lot of like summery type of books. I also feel like a lot of summer books are very kind of like cheesy, lighthearted, fluffy romance. That usually is really not my thing either. Story short, your girl hates the summertime, okay? But there are some books that I do love that are summery and would be good to read in the summer. Okay, let's move on. First, two books that I want to talk about. This is a little duo. It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. These are spicy romances. I would say It Happened One Summer is a lot spicier than Hook, Line, and Sinker. It took me a while to read these two because just in looking at the cover, I thought they were going to be just really corny because of the covers, but in my opinion they were not corny at all. I actually really loved these two books. It's hard for me to choose which one I liked better because they are actually pretty different. This one is really spicy, this one is a little bit sweeter in my opinion, but I love them both for different reasons. Basically, these two books are about two sisters who go to a small fishing town, and one of the sisters in this book, Piper, she is like a really popular socialite. And so she goes to this small fishing town and she is completely out of place. And that is where she meets Brendan. And of course, this book is about their story. And then Hook, Line, and Sinker is about Piper's sister, Hannah, who is pretty opposite of Piper. And this book is about Hannah and Fox's story. And Fox is someone that Hannah actually meets in the first book. So the second book is their story. But I think that these books would be the perfect summer reads just because of the setting. Is set in a little small fishing town in the Pacific Northwest. And I just think the setting is just very summery. It's very small town. Books are really, they are very spicy, but they're also really heartfelt. And they also have a little bit of humor in them as well. So I would 100% recommend reading these this summer. Okay, the next book is Archer's Voice. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Everyone needs to read this book. Everybody. This is another small town romance similar to It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker, where it's set in a small town. This is set in Pelion, Maine. This is about Bree, who goes to the town of Pelion and she ends up meeting Archer. And Archer is someone that she is very intrigued by because he's sort of mysterious. He doesn't talk. And she is just very enthralled by him when she first meets him. There's just kind of like this undeniable attraction, and she doesn't, and not just physically, but she just feels like drawn to him. This story unfolds and you just learn so much about Archer's story and also about Bree's story. They have both gone through some pretty traumatic things in their life. And this book is about their healing and their relationship, of course. But I just loved the setting in this book as well. And I feel like it's the perfect book to read in the summertime because the little town that this takes place in is set on the water. So it's just like a cute little lake town. And the houses that they both live in, especially Bree, she lives in like this little cottage. I can just picture being in that cottage like in the summertime and sitting on the porch, drinking some tea, having a little snack. It's just like the perfect little summertime setting. And it's set in Maine. As someone who doesn't like the summer, I feel like Maine would be the perfect place for me to be in the summertime because it's not too hot, it's not too cold. You get those like cool summer nights, warm days, but not too hot, you know? I've never even been to Maine and I'm like over here describing the weather. Is that how the weather is in Maine? I don't even know. But that's what I imagine. So when I was reading this book, I immediately was like transported to summertime in Maine. I don't know. This is just a great book and you have to read it. Next up, I have a thriller. This is The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. This is actually a newer release by her. I read this book last month. This book is about a group of people who survived something very traumatic 10 years ago, and they are reuniting on the anniversary of that event to kind of commemorate what happened. And this story kind of takes you through the whole mystery of everything that happened that night 10 years ago. So of course this is a thriller, so it has more of a dark setting, but the house that they are staying in is set on the beach. This is like the coziest beachy thriller. Like if you are someone who is like me and you like darker types of books, but you still want to have that kind of summery atmosphere, you're gonna love this. It's very dark and atmospheric, but it's also summery at the same time. There's also like really stormy weather, and the house that they are staying in is kind of it's just like a little bit creepy. It's like a big beach house. So in my opinion, this is like the perfect cozy summer thriller. Next up is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hilderbrand. I can't do a summer book video without talking about Ellen Hilderbrand. She is the queen of summertime. All of her books are set in Nantucket and have the beachiest summery setting. So if you have not read an Ellen Hilderbrand book during the summertime, this is your sign. You must. I have read a few of her books, and this is by far my favorite of hers. I personally love this one because not only is it summery, this one also has a big mystery attached to it. I just absolutely loved the mix of romance, but also a mystery slash thriller type of vibe. She just mixes the two genres perfectly in this book, and I loved everything about it. It's hands down my favorite book that I've read by her. But this is about a couple who is about to get married, and hours before their wedding, a body is found in Nantucket Harbor. Then everything starts kind of unfolding from there. This is kind of like a whodunit type of book, but also has some romance aspects to it as well. So of course the police start like interviewing everyone. They're interviewing the bridal party and the family, and they're obviously trying to get down to who murdered this person. This book is so good. Next up, we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I would say that this is my top favorite summer read. This book is about Percy and Sam, who basically grow up as really close friends. She spends every summer at the lake house, and Sam lives next door. So they become very, very close over multiple summers. They spend their days on the water, and they work at a little family restaurant in town, watch movies together like every night. They're just like the best of friends. And so of course their connection is undeniable, and they end up forming a relationship, but something happens and they're drawn apart. Years go by and something big happens that pulls Percy back to this lake town. And at this point, she has to confront Sam about what happened all those years ago. This is just my favorite book to read in the summertime. Honestly, this is one of my favorite books of all time ever. So it doesn't even matter what time of year it is. If you have not read this, you must. The setting is everything. The writing is everything. I love the characters, everything about it. Just read this book, please. And sticking with Carly Fortune, I also want to talk about Meet Me at the Lake. This is a book that recently just came out, like, was it last week? Yes, this just came out last week. I actually just did a reading vlog reading this book, so if you were interested in that, I will link that video down in the description. But I really loved this book too. I didn't love it as much as I loved Every Summer After, but I still really did enjoy it. This is just a very lighthearted, cozy, sweet second chance romance. This book is about Fern and Will, who end up meeting one day 10 years ago. They spend 24 hours together, and they obviously have a mutual connection, but the timing just isn't right for either of them. So they make a pact to meet 1 year later at Fern's mom's lake resort, which is basically where Fern grew up. So it's like her home. And on that day, Fern shows up, but Will doesn't. So obviously Fern is heartbroken. 9 years go by, and now Fern has pretty much taken over managing this lake resort. And of course she runs into Will. And so everything kind of unfolds at that point. But I really enjoyed this. The setting obviously is everything. I mean, look at the cover. This cover kind of says it all. It is set on a lake resort. So if you just think of, if you've seen the movie Dirty Dancing, that resort that they're staying on in that movie is basically that setting in book form. Now, I will say this is a very kind of lighthearted, fluffy romance, but it's not cheesy. I feel like there's a fine line between romances that are very light and fluffy. I feel like they can get cheesy really fast, at least in my opinion. And this one was not at all. It was very sweet. It was very warm. I love Carly Fortune's writing so much. Spice level is pretty low in this one as well. So if you were someone who's looking for a just really cozy, light summer read, I think you would really enjoy this one. Okay, the last book I want to talk about is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I am pretty sure if you are someone who reads a lot of books, you've more than likely read this one. But if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. The movie is also really good, which I feel like is sometimes really hard to do book to movie adaptations, but the movie was very, very good. But this book is about Kaya, who has had somewhat of a rough upbringing, and she kind of has to end up raising herself in the marshlands of North Carolina's Outer Banks. So the setting of this book is just, to me, is very summery because their house is set in the Outer Banks, and so they're on the water, and she is on the water all the time. She kind of learns to live in the marshland. But the setting of this book is just, in my opinion, very summery. It's really humid where she's at, and she's on the water all the time, like in her boat, and she's outside in nature all the time. And it's something different than a romance novel, you know? This book also has a little bit of a mystery attached to it as well. There's like a little review on the back of this, which I feel like describes this book perfectly. One of them says, "This fierce and hauntingly beautiful novel centers on Kaya's heartbreaking story of learning to trust human connections, intertwined with a gripping murder mystery revealing savage truths." And then this other one says, "This gorgeous novel is both a coming-of-age tale and an engrossing whodunit." So that's, to me, the perfect way to describe it. It's very deep and very lyrical, and the story is very touching. Then there's also that whodunit type of murder mystery connected to it. So I don't know, I really enjoyed this book a lot. But that does it for all of the books that I would recommend you read this summertime. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video and it was helpful and gave you some ideas on what you can read this upcoming summer season. But even if you don't read these in the summer, these are all books that I would recommend just in general. I loved all of them so much. So if you haven't read these, add them to your TBR right now. Anyway, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you've read any of these books. I would love to hear from you. I would also love to have y'all over on Instagram and TikTok. I will put all of my social handles down here on the screen. But I appreciate y'all watching this video so much. Thank you for being here, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye.